remember I think it was during the 50s and 60s, where all of a sudden, in the big anti-communist push in this country, led by America's collection of psychopaths back then in the leadership positions, Mayday was seen as a terrible threat because the communists celebrated. Oh, watch out. Jesus Christ. However, French union leaders today, in their protests, in their Mayday demonstrations, the French are big for this kind of stuff, really. But they condemn, the union leaders there condemned what they're calling the Trumpization of world politics. In Italy, Mayday protesters paraded a puppet of the toilet rat through the streets of Turin. And according to the Associated Press, across various continents on this tired little blue dark marble, hundreds of thousands turned out for today's rallies, marking International Workers' Day, which is what it's called in most countries. But we're not allowed to say that here because international workers, well, that's goddamn communism. Workers, huh? But anyway, in these demonstrations all over the planet, a lot of the demonstrations were united, you might say, in anger over the toilet rat's agenda, from his tariffs to his violation of our Constitution. People in other countries are pissed off because the toilet rat is violating the Constitution in this country, and there's a reason for that. They don't have a Constitution like that in these various countries. And if they do have one, it's strictly pro forma. Their government does not honor the Constitution, just like the toilet rat is beginning to piss all over our Constitution. So people in different countries are aware of this. And they know that the one beacon, as weak as it has gotten at times, but it's never gone completely out, the beacon of freedom and justice is this country, the United States. So when they see this monstrous fucking proto-Nazi, Donald Trump, storming around the country with his little hands and his big gut telling people, well, this is what's going to happen, not that. That's legal. This is me. People in other countries get disappointed, pissed off, angry when they see that. In Germany, according to AP, union leaders warned that extended workdays and rising anti-immigrant sentiments were dismantling labor protections. In Switzerland, thousands marched behind banners denouncing fascism and war. Where else? Taiwan. The president of Taiwan cited new U.S. tariffs under the toilet rat as he, the president of Taiwan, promoted an economic package aimed at shoring up jobs and industry in that country in preparation for what Trump is going to cause, which is a global recession that very easily could tip into a recession. And we know what happens during that period of time. We have war. In the Philippines, one of the leaders there, who is not aligned with the Philippine government, which is run by, I think, one of Marcos's sons now. Christ. Anyway, the protest leader in the Philippines warned that, quote, tariff wars and policies of Trump are threatening local industries and people's livelihoods in that country. Japan, there were parades and demonstrations. And one was a truck in the Tokyo March, carried a doll made to resemble the toilet rat, huge one, I guess a balloon doll. And demonstrators in Japan called for higher wages, gender equality, health care, disaster relief, a ceasefire in Gaza, and an end to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. A member of a mother's group in Tokyo is quoted as saying, quote, for our children to be able to live with hope, the rights of workers must be recognized. Where else? Where else? In Turkey. There you go. In Turkey, Mayday served as a platform not only for labor rights, but for broader calls for for the government there of Erdogan to uphold democratic values, which he's not. The leader of Turkey is determined to become the dictator, a religious fascist dictator. He wants Turkey to be no longer be a secular state, which is how one of the founders of modern Turkey insisted that it would be. It would not be an Islamic state. Erdogan wants it to be an Islamic state. Am I talking? No, who am I talking about? Yeah, that's right. Erdogan is the leader of Turkey. Anyway, tens of thousands got together on Istanbul's Asian shore for a rally, some railing against the jailing of the opposition mayor of Istanbul. His imprisonment back in March caused the country's largest protests in more than a decade. What else is going on in the wonderful world of the earth? Los Angeles was expected to host one of the world's largest Mayday events. Organizers say the protests that will be evident or were evident, since by the time you hear this, they will have occurred. Organizers say the protests will reflect mounting frustration with policies that favor the billionaires over workers and corporations over communities. Yeah. A banner at the LA March said, "One struggle, one fight, workers unite." I appreciate any protest that is protesting against any aspect of suppression or oppression or fascism or anti-democracy or injustice or racism or anti-Semitism or anti-LGBTQ machinations of this filthy goddamn toilet rats government. I just hope that they remain peaceful. What I'm hoping is that as these little pieces of this mosaic that's starting to come together now, that is going to drive this fucking toilet rat out of office, I hope these pieces can come together and will defeat this son of a bitch before he completely destroys everything. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.